it's not really been that long. How are you doing?
There are good days and bad days, you know. Little things will trigger me, and I'll cry. But we know where Peter is, so that's a big comfort to us, you know. So he asked Jesus to come into his heart at a very young age, as did all the kids. So we know where he is. So I actually had a dream about him being in heaven too, all dressed in white. So that was a comfort too after he passed.
Yeah. You have 7 kids, 6 now.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about your kids. I mean, tell me about Peter as a little baby, as we see him here.
My mom wanted a son, but she didn't get sons. She had 3 daughters. And when my 2 sisters got married, they didn't have sons. When Doug and I got married, we had the 4 girls, so she didn't think she'd ever have a grandson. But then Peter was born, so she was happy, and we were happy to have a son to carry on the Jerving name. And my father-in-law was a firstborn son, and then my husband, Doug, was a firstborn son, and then Peter was a firstborn son. Let's see, this is in 1985, so this must have been Christmas because Peter was born in November 85.
What kind of baby was he?
He was a strong baby. When I'd put him down in the crib, he'd want to stand back up.
Well, these are some childhood pictures, I'm guessing, of him?
Yes.
So just kind of, I guess, tell me the stories of these pictures.
This is 1986, so Peter was 1.5 with his 4 sisters.
Okay. Oh.
And that painting in the back was one that Doug painted. It's huge. And this was in 1987 in our backyard. I was pregnant with Andrew there, and I'm holding Peter with his 4 sisters. And then Peter was a big sports fan, and I homeschooled all the kids. So Peter was disappointed we didn't, have any sports team or anything. But he joined some club, and he was able to play basketball. And this was his first organized sports game with his basketball team.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. And then his first job, this was in 2003, he worked at McDonald's.
Okay.
And all 3 of the boys worked at the same McDonald's. And Peter and Andrew worked there, and we met the manager one day, and he just bragged about what hard workers, Peter and Andrew were. And he said, I wish you had some other son or daughter that could come and work. And so I said, well, actually, I do have a younger son, but he wasn't old enough to come to work. But the manager said, oh, send him over, we'll hire him anyway. So all the boys were very, very hard workers.
From a young age, too.
Yes, and this was 2002, and Peter is here in the back and with his sisters. And then Rachel, is this? Yeah, Peter's holding Rachel's son, Aaron, there in that picture. And then every Thanksgiving, I would get a family picture of all of us, and I would use that as a Christmas card then. So this was 2003 with all of us. Let's see where Peter is. Peter's here in the back then.
Okay.
And then this one, it was 2005, and Peter's in the middle there.
Cute.
And the girls had significant others and children, so they're all in there too.
Oh, that's awesome.
And this is 2008 then. Okay. Let's see, where's Peter? He's here. No, that's Andrew. Here's Peter.
Okay. Oh.
In the black there.
Yeah. Awesome. What was he, tell me about what he was like growing up. You said he liked sports. Did he play other sports? Was it just basketball?
It was just, with his friends and his siblings, and, just anything that he liked. Yeah. He liked it all. So the only organized thing was that basketball game. So, but later when he got older, he liked all the professional sports.
Yeah, would watch a lot of sports growing up, I'm sure too.
Yeah.
How long did he play basketball for? Do you remember? Or was
I think it was just that one season.
Okay, cool.
and I forget what it was. Some club,
Okay.
you know, that was for Milwaukee youth, you know,
Yeah.
and so he loved that. He loved the. I don't know. He could have gone on to be play professional sports, but that wasn't what he ended up doing.
Yeah.
But I have his graduation picture here, and I found this, his diploma from our home school,
Oh, cool.
Faith in Action School. He had this, I put it in the frame and
Yeah.
gave it to him, and this was hanging on the wall in his house, and I found it after he passed. So he was very proud of it, and,
Yeah.
and he hung it on the wall. And he, with the police department, he had won different certificates for completing different things, and he had them all hung on the wall. So I have those now. They're not hanging on the wall. I don't have enough space for everything, but he was very proud of them.
Yeah, and I imagine you're proud of all those accomplishments too. Yeah.
Just anything he put his mind to do, he did very well.
It's determined.
Yeah.
When was the earliest you remember about him maybe talking about wanting to be a police officer?
That was when he was 13. He had gotten together with some friends that weren't the best, and he got a little disrespectful of his parents, and he did something, and we called the cops on him. And this very nice police officer came and talked to him for the longest time. And he just told him, now you've only got one mother, you know, you should be respectful of her, you know, and made Peter cry. Mm-hmm. And after that, he started talking about he wanted to be a police officer. Wow. So it was something that led to him wanting to be a police officer. So that was it was a good thing, you know.
Well, and it seems like, you know, when people have maybe an interaction like that, or the cops are called on them, you know, to have that experience of something bad turn into something so good, and, you know, to turn into a life of service is incredible.
And somebody had asked me, well, who was that police officer? And they wanted to know if maybe he was still alive and could be contacted and let know, you know, what an influence he had on Peter. But all the records, they said they weren't kept, so I have no idea.
Wow. But he made Peter cry because it was just an emotional moment.
Yeah, he told him that he shouldn't treat his parents that way, you know, and that he only had one mother, and it really affected him. And so when I saw those tears coming down his cheeks, I knew that he was being set straight.
Right. Yeah. And then he just talked about being a police officer after that?
That's what he wanted to do. So when he graduated then, he wanted to go to the academy, but we couldn't send him at that time, so he just got a job. Mm-hmm. And he worked for that job for, I think it was like 13 years. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, after he turned 33, he realized that if he was ever going to fulfill his childhood dream, he should do it. Mm-hmm. So he quit the job and applied. And at first, the academy wouldn't accept his homemade homeschool diploma. So, but I forget, he got different, because it was legal to homeschool in Wisconsin, and it still is. So he got various papers, and they did finally accept him then.
Yeah.
So he joined in June of 2018, and I was told that it had been 22 years since a police officer had been killed in the line of duty. So I thought, it's a dangerous job, but he'll be okay. And then in 2018, 2 officers died in the line of duty. And so I was real worried about him. But well, I should tell, before I talk about his graduation, this is our oldest daughter, Rachel's wedding. And this is Peter, you know. He loved to make people laugh. So.
Classic middle child, right?
So Rachel, this is, she married her longtime boyfriend, Brian, and he died last year, not a year before Peter. So she wasn't even done grieving her husband, and then she lost Peter. So here she is between them both, and they're in heaven together.
Picture for her.
And so all the kids are here except for my daughter Kathy, and she couldn't come to the wedding. But I have his graduation picture here. This is why the thing was so heavy.
Yeah.
Chief Morales. Doug had a lot of respect for Chief Morales, and he talked about him. He really liked him. And then Doug got to pin his badge on him, so they were just busting with pride up there on that stage.
You too, I bet. That was a bet. What do you remember of that day?
Well, everybody, different people was yelling, you know, "That's my son, that's my brother." So I stood up, and just as I yelled, "That's my son," it got real quiet. So they told me later they heard me on stage. So I said, "That's my son," and then I started crying. So then after Peter passed, my hometown newspaper, my younger sister had them put this piece in the newspaper. Shall I read it?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Fallen Milwaukee police officer had Reelsville ties. Milwaukee, Wisconsin police officer killed in the line of duty last week had ties to Putnam County. Officer Peter Jerving was killed on Tuesday, February 7th, when police say a 19-year-old robbery suspect shot him. Jerving fired back, also killing the man. The 37-year-old was the son of Patty and Douglas Jerving of Milwaukee. The former, Patty Tallis, is a native of Reelsville. Officer Jerving was laid to rest Monday in Wisconsin. And then it says expressions of sympathy could be left at Krause Funeral Home.
What did that mean to you to have that in your hometown paper?
Oh, it meant a lot. When my sister called the newspaper and asked them to put something in the paper, the guy told my sister Donna, she says, "That's a huge story. We don't have," you know, because the hometown paper was just like 4 pages long.
Yeah.
So it was too long to put, but then they put this little bit in there. And then a friend of mine from high school laminated it and gave it to me. I brought the trophy here that the Brewers gave us. It says, hometown champions, Officer Peter Jerving, tipping our hat for your courage, commitment, and sacrifice, April 25th, 2023. And it's just so lovely. And so I sent the officials of the Brewers a thank you letter. And now it's stuck together here. Here it is. He wrote me back, the president. I'd like to read that too.
Yeah, please.
Dear Mrs. Jerving, thank you for taking the time to share your warm experience regarding the recent Brewers game honoring your son, Officer Jerving. Your son will remain an honored hero forever. We are grateful to have had the opportunity to host a special memorial with our greater community for his bravery. Our sincere thoughts and prayers remain with you and your family. Very truly yours, Rick Schlesinger. And the paper is a little water stain because I took it to the cemetery and I read it at Peter's gravesite, because I thought he would just be thrilled, you know, that the president of his favorite sports you know, wanted to honor him like that.
That's incredible.
And then the last thing that I have here is the heaviest, so I'll move some of this out of the way.
Just to blow away.
And this is the Medal of Honor that they gave Peter.
Yeah.
Shall I read that too?
Yeah, if you'd like to, that would be great.
American Police Hall of Fame. Medal of Honor presented in memory of Officer Peter E.C. Jerving, Eric Christian Jerving, Milwaukee Police Department, Wisconsin, who in the performance of his duties as a public safety officer gave his life on February 7, 2023, protecting life and property.
that we dedicate ourselves to his memory and the supreme sacrifice he made. This posthumous award is public recognition of the honor in which we will bestow upon him by engraving his name in the Police Hall of Fame Memorial, so that his sacrifice and his dedication to humanity and justice will always be remembered by generations to come. Barry E. Shepard, President, issued by the American Police Hall of Fame this 12th day of April 2023. So it's a nice medal here and a coin.
That's special.
So that'll be going up on our wall in our living room.
And this is recent, you got this recently. It seems like April. I guess it's been a few months now.
They issued it then, but we got it. They called us to police District 4 station, and they gave us different cards that people had sent. They didn't know our address, so they sent it to District 4. Yeah. So they gave us those cards, and then wanted to present this to us.
Will you try to go see the engraving at some point, you think?
We will be going to Washington, D.C. next year during that, police week.
Yeah.
And so we'll see it then.
Yeah.
And then Harley Davidson has some sort of honor wall up, and we'll be going to see that when we when we find out that that's done. I don't know when that's going to be done, but that's all I brought. So if you have other questions.
Tell me about his service. What did he talk about when he was in the police force? What did he enjoy?
He loved chasing bad guys, and that was one of the things he told me when he joined. He said, "I want to do good, and I want to chase bad guys. I want to catch bad guys." So his captain, Captain Schley, wanted to take him off. He was on third shift, from midnight to 7. And Captain Schley wanted to take him off that shift, and get him on another shift. But Peter didn't want to go. He liked the action of that late shift. Yeah. And in the early years, when he wasn't busy, he would drive past our house, and I'd see a police car out in the alley, and so I'd text Peter, "Is that you, Pete?" And he'd text back, "Yep, it's me." So, but in these last couple of years, he was very busy, and especially after 2020, because the police had to work so many long hours then, and then also he was taking college courses at Marian University. I think it was online. Yeah. So somebody from the university had posted a little blurb from one of his papers, and so I wrote to the university and I asked for some of his papers that he had wrote. So they sent them to me, and I can't read them without crying, but I have gone through some of them, and he loved his job, and I don't know what he planned on doing with that diploma, for criminal justice. But he was only halfway through that, so.
It sounds like he was trying to further his career, get more education.
Yeah, and he would have done good. And everybody that came across Peter on the job, they would mention to me since then, what a good guy he was, and they just. And they'd see his name, Jerving, and they'd say, "Are you related to Doug and Patty Jerving?" And so he was proud to say yes. So.
Yeah. I know you talked about there was a police officer that came into his life and in a way was a mentor, and someone that set him on the path to become a police officer. It seems like he did that in some ways too, because he started that kickball game, right, with the elementary school. He was a part of the initial team.
I don't know if he started it, but that was last year was the first game.
Yeah.
And I guess he did a home run in that game. I didn't know about that until the game.
Yeah.
But I had a great time this year at the game honoring him, and I had made a poster saying, "Go D4 Cops," and I went around to the different sections of kids. They were seated, at grade level, and so I was yelling, "Go D4 Cops," and they shouted me down and said, "No, rocket ship teachers,"
Yeah.
And so that it was fun. They outnumbered me though, and so they shouted louder. So, and then I went around and I asked the kids at the end. Of course, the police said the police won the game, and so I asked the kids, and I got half and half answers. Half the kids said, "Oh, our teachers won," and half of them said, "No, the cops won." But it didn't matter who won. You know, we just all had a lot of fun.
Yeah. To know that maybe Peter had an impact of having that positive experience with the cop on other kids, what does that mean to you?
Oh, that means a lot. I think he would appreciate that too, because a police officer influenced him. So I'm sorry.
No, you're okay. Take your time, please. Yeah.
But he had a great testimony for his short life. He did a lot of good things, and
Yeah. What does it mean, or what did it mean to him to lead a life of service, public service like this as a police officer?
I think he enjoyed every bit of it. He liked the uniform, and he liked the cop cars, and he liked driving fast, but he liked getting the bad guys off the streets. So.
Yeah. What did it mean to you that your son wanted to lead a life of service in that way?
I knew it was a dangerous job, and I was afraid for him, but I knew he had wanted to do it, for a long time. And since he got a job and worked there for so long, I thought, maybe he wasn't gonna do it. But he finally said, he finally said that if he was gonna do it, get his dream, that he had to quit. And then I was told by someone in the police department that for a man over 30 to join the police, it was so much harder, physically and mentally to do. But Peter just, passed with flying colors. Everybody was proud of him.
Yeah, very determined.
Yes.
And a man of faith too.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, we raised him in the church. I understand that the young man that shot Peter had been raised in the church too by his mother, but like Peter did, he was influenced by friends more than his mother, and fortunately, something happened in Peter's life that set him straight, and evidently that didn't happen, to that young man, but. I think about his mother, Tamara, and wish her well. Yeah. And both Doug and I said, we don't know what happened in the last seconds of his life. He may remember things that his mother had told him, and God we can't say what God did and didn't do. He may have granted him repentance at the last minute, and maybe he went to heaven too. That's a hope, for his mother's sake, because it was hard for me to think another mother lost a son that same night.
Yeah, I know you talked about that at the funeral service. You talked about that there was another family grieving the loss of a son. Why was it so important for you to acknowledge that?
Actually, I just read a paper. I had. Every night after it happened, I would pray, and I would just kind of repeat the same things, praying for my family, but also, for the other family. And I just thought, I want to remember this, and so I wrote it down. And then they told me, I could speak at the funeral. So I thought, I'm just going to type this up and I'm going to read it. And I don't know if you noticed, I never looked up from the paper, I didn't look at the crowd or anything. It was just me and God. I was talking to God. And
so that was your nightly prayer after?
Yeah. So I just, prayed my heart and just spoke it. And then whenever I finished and I stepped away from the microphone, I looked up and everybody was standing and clapping, and I thought, whoa, what? That was just me talking to God. So
that's powerful. I know that other young man also passed, but do you forgive him?
Yes, the Bible says if I don't forgive, I won't be forgiven. So, and we were all born into sin, so in order to receive salvation, we do have to forgive. So I do, and like I said, I hope at the last minute he was granted forgiveness. It didn't seem like he had any plans to be arrested, though. I don't know if you saw the body cam video, but he had a gun that had like 18 bullets in it, so I don't think he was not prepared to be arrested anyways. But
have you had a chance to speak to the other mother at all? I know you.
no, I don't think she, especially you know, at the beginning, I don't think she would be able to receive me. But I do think about her, and I absolutely wish her well. I don't know how many children she had, whether he was her only one, but.
If you ever had the chance to sit down with her, what would you tell her?
I would probably just cry with her. You know, I don't know what I would say to her. But I just wish it had turned out a little different. You know.
That mother's heartbreak is so deep. This is hard, but can you take me back to that day when you found out? Can you tell me a little bit about what that was like?
Probably not without crying, but it was at 2:30 in the morning and our doorbell rang. And I said to Doug, I said, "Who is ringing our doorbell at 2:30 in the morning?" So he got up and he looked out and he said, "It looks like 3 detectives out on our porch." Well, I thought something had happened in our neighborhood and they were just wanting to know if we had seen or heard anything. So they came in and they were very, very kind and very respectful, and they just said, "There's been an incident." And Doug said, "Well, how's my son? Is he all right?" And they paused, and it seemed like a very long pause. But at that moment, I knew it wasn't good. So they said, "No, he passed." And then they said, "Well, you call whoever you need to call." And so I said, "Well, we've got 6 kids. We're going to be here forever making calls." And so they just said, "You do what you have to do." So we called all the kids, and they just were all screaming and crying. They couldn't believe it. And then the detectives took us to the hospital where we saw Peter. And I touched his head, and he was cold, and I said, "He's not here." And I knew he wasn't, you know, he was already gone. And then they did a procession, you know, to the medical examiner. I found out just recently that when Officer Charles Irvine died, Peter drove in that procession. And then when they gave us Peter's possession, he had a nightstick, and he had a band with a number on it, and so I had to ask somebody whose number that was, and that was Officer Matthew Rittner. That he kept that band, you know, on his nightstick. So with 2 officers dying in 2018 and then 2 more in 2019, Peter knew the risks of his job, but he was willing to take them. And on the night that he died, his partner tried to keep the gunman's hand down, but instead of taking cover, which I was told the police are trained, you know, in the face of gunfire to take cover, Peter didn't. He ran to the danger because he knew his partner was most likely be killed. So he risked his life to save his partner. And with that gun with 18 bullets, there may have been other officers that were rushing to the scene that may have been harmed too. So Peter gave his life, you know, for his fellow officers, and there could have been bystanders, you know, that could have been injured too. So he did what he had to do, even though I'm sure it hurt him, you know, to have to shoot, but he did, and a lot of good came out of that. And
In the days that followed, I mean, I know that there have been so many memorials, so much outpouring of support for you and your family. Tell me what you remember from that or what it's meant to you.
oh, the support of the community and the police department, and we still get recognized. We go into restaurants and have the tab picked up by somebody that just wants to do something nice for us, you know. And they stop us, you know, and want to shake our hands, you know, and want to give me a hug, which is fine, you know. And I knew that the Peter's co-workers, co-officers were just devastated by his death, so I had to go to District 4, you know, to comfort them. And I was told that really helped them. And then Captain Schley, Peter's captain, asked me to go to District 2 because that's where the incident happened. Because they had to deal with the whole scene.
Yeah.
So I went there, and then I thought I should go to all the districts, all 7 of the districts, because Peter was the 5th Milwaukee police officer to die in the line of duty in 5 years. So they all, you know, were feeling the trauma. So I went at over, it was several months. The police chaplain, George Papacristo, took me to all the districts. And I got to tour the districts and see their honor walls, you know, see the other officers, you know, that had died in the line of duty.
That's
And,
amazing. I mean, even in your grief, you're still mothering others.
Well, I've told a lot of people I lost one son, but I gained a lot of sons and daughters back in the Milwaukee Police Department.
That's so special.
And I would get up, they have online some of the police calls. They don't put all of the calls online for the public to see. But when Peter was out there, I would get up in the middle of the night when he was on duty, and I'd look out just to see what maybe he was doing. And when I can't sleep, even now, I get up and I'll look at that and I'll just see what my other sons and daughters are doing.
Yeah. The funeral too, I mean, it was such a beautiful service.
That was a long day.
It was. I bet it was exhausting. The streets were lined, though, with people.
They were. And when we went from Elmbrook Church to the cemetery, there were people on both sides, you know, and I looked at everything. I saw everybody waving their flags and holding their hearts, because I wanted to remember that, you know, that they thought so much of a Milwaukee police officer for them to come out, and they were waving their American flags, you know, so that meant a lot to me too.
Yeah.
And then after the graveside service, then the Brewers had us down to the stadium for a meal, and so it was a very long day, but it was very good.
Yeah. How do you remember Peter?
He told me he wanted to be the best damn cop that he could be. So I told a lot of people at the funeral and later, I don't know if he ever wanted to be a hero, but he wanted to be the best damn cop that he could be. And he fulfilled that, because a lot of people said he did. So.
Yeah. What are maybe 3 words that come to mind when you think about Peter?
I just would like to say I love him.
Yeah. I love you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are good 3 words. Yeah. How do you hope Milwaukee continues to hold the memory of your son?
Oh, I know they'll remember him, and I pray every day that there won't be another officer. But they do such dangerous jobs, and I don't think the majority of the community really know what they do to keep us safe. And they're told, you know, every time they put on their uniform, you know, that it could be the last time, you know, and that they might go into a dangerous situation, and they know that, and they still do it. And they need more police officers, and they need they need the respect of the community too. You know, it really affects their morale. You know, to hear people yell defund the police. You know, and it's not just a job to them, and I've seen that. You know, that there's something down on the inside of these men and women who become police officers that no other job will satisfy. They have to be cops, and it's that dedication that keeps them on the job, and they should be respected for that.
Yeah. What else about Peter am I missing, or that you want to share with me?
I can't think anything right now. He did want to get married and have children, but he hadn't found Ms. Right. And he dated a lot of pretty girls, and they were all real nice, but he just hadn't found the right one yet. But
yeah. Anything else that you want to share with me?
I don't think so.
Thank you so much.
I think
Mrs.
I've cried
Jerving.
enough.
I really appreciate it.
I appreciate your time and patience
Yeah,
with me.
No, thank you. This was really lovely. It was great just